What if Naruto was the neglected Pokemon trainer and was husband of Cynthia? So hey guys, I am Bored-kun. Welcome to my channel. Now let's move on to the story. Naruto Namikaze sighed as he walked home from spending the day in the forest. Naruto was 16 years old and very tall, about 6 feet 1 inch. Now, when most people heard about a non-trainer playing in the forest, they would freak out, but for some reason wild Pokemon never bothered Naruto.
Not to say that they avoided him, he had actually just been playing with a group of Puccina. He just meant that they didn't attack him like they would regular people. As Naruto entered the small town, he couldn't help but sigh as he noticed some kids laughing at him and pointing. At 16 years of age, Naruto had a crappy life. First off, he had no friends, since he was born an albino. He had pale skin, not paper white, but paler than an average person, snow-white hair, and pink eyes. Also there were his whisker marks. No kid wanted to play with the freak, and not only his looks. His parents ignored him for his twin brother and sister, the prodigies. PFT. Truth be told, they were average, slightly talented at best. Every birthday and Christmas they would ask for books on Pokemon while Naruto would get ignored as usual. They would skim half the books once, get bored, and toss them aside, never to be read again. By them. Naruto would read and analyze every book they got. He knew almost everything there was to know about Pokemon, types, personalities, abilities, everything. Speaking of his parents, Naruto's father, Minato Namikaze, was the former Hoenn champion, before he was beaten a few years ago by a guy named Steven Stone. Kushina Namikaze, his mother, was a top coordinator before she retired to have him and his siblings. Just 3 more days. Naruto thought, 3 more days and I'll be able to leave on my journey, but first, to get my trainer's license. Naruto walked up to Professor Birch's lab and walked in. He always volunteered to help out the professor in his work, so the two were on very good terms. As a matter of fact, Birch was more of a father to him than his own. As Naruto walked in, he was assaulted by a small child slamming into his stomach. He looked down to see a 7-year-old girl with black hair and red eyes staring up at him. Hey bro. Naruto smirked at the kid. Hello Brandy. What are you doing here? Brandy backed up and said, I'm helping Dad out with his work. Are you here to get your license? Yep. Where's your dad? He's out working in the field. Naruto nodded. Alright, I'll go and get him, you stay here. Brandy nodded as Naruto walked down the path to the outskirts of town. As he walked out, he strolled around the forest looking for the professor, and he found him. Being chased by a Puccina. Naruto sighed and walked over. When the little dog saw him, it changed course and jumped into his arms. Professor, you should really wait for me before you go out on field research, Naruto said as he pet the Pokemon. Birch laughed nervously and said, sorry about that, I accidentally stepped on the little guy's tail. Naruto shook his head and set the Pokemon down. It then scampered off into the woods. The two headed back to the lab and got Naruto set up for his test. When he finished, he exited and saw the other town kids there to take it, his siblings among them. They noticed him and not so quietly commented. Check it out, the freak's here. Why is he even bothering? Pokemon are probably scared of him. Naruto's brother Menma then spoke up with a smirk, so loser, how bad did you fail? His sister merely disregarded him like he wasn't worth her time. Naruto ignored them and walked up to Birch's desk. He placed his test down and waited for the professor to grade it. When he was done, Birch said, just loud enough for everyone to hear, a perfect score. Just what I'd expect from my most talented assistant. Naruto smiled as Birch winked at him. Naruto walked out, ignoring the other kids whispering. He picked up his Pokédex and Pokeballs on the way out. The professor had 2 Pokédexes to give out, and he chose to give one to Naruto. It was black with lime green lining. Naruto walked out into the woods and headed for a secret pool. He emerged into a clearing with a pond, small waterfall, and a cave in the rock face. He then said, alright guys. Line up. 6 small Pokemon ran out and stood before him. Over the years, his parents had taken them on numerous trips around the world, ignoring him as usual. During those trips, he had sometimes found a Pokemon that he got close to, so he asked them if they wanted to join his team, and then he snuck them home. First, a Charmander named Eros met on a trip to Cinnabar Island, and Naruto's first Pokemon. Second, a Mudkip named Cool, who Naruto met right there in the forest. Third, a Chespin named Sage, straight from the gardens of the Parfum Palace in Kalos. Fourth, a Ghastly named Drac, They had a blast pranking his family at the old chateau in Sinnoh. 5th, a Larvitar named Tex, from Mount Steel in Johto. 6th, a Bagon named Frey, from Meteor Falls. The 7 had grown up and trained together in anticipation for the day Naruto could leave on his journey. Naruto lifted the 6 Pokeballs and watched as they all lit up. He threw them and they all let the balls bounce on their heads and draw them in. After they all clicked, Naruto walked back home with them. He couldn't keep them at the house before this because they would have been targeted by his siblings. Menma liked to consider himself a collector, while Nozomi liked to catch anything that caught her eye. As he walked by the Pokemon pen, he let them all out around his parents' Pokemon. They looked like they were all having fun, so he just went inside. 3 days later, Naruto shot up out of bed and got ready to leave. He was wearing a gray shirt with a burgundy and maroon zip-up shirt with elbow-length sleeves, lined with black. The one at the high-end boutique in Pokemon X and Y, blue jeans, and a pair of dark brown hiking boots. He grabbed his white vinyl messenger bag and headed downstairs. When he arrived, he heard his brother talking to his parents. "Please Dad. Just let me borrow one Pokemon for 1 minute." Minato shook his head. "Nope, you're getting your Pokemon today, you can wait to try and catch one of them." "But they might be gone by then." Menma whined. Nozomi smacked his head. "What I want to know is, why are there so many rare Pokemon gathered in our pen?" "Ah. So they noticed my Pokemon." Naruto thought as he descended the rest of the steps, "They're mine." Everyone turned to look at him, his brother scoffing and his sister looking like she didn't believe him. His parents were wide-eyed as they saw him. "And Naruto," his mother said. Naruto just headed for the door. "I caught them yesterday, though I've known them for years." Minato regained his senses. "Why didn't you tell any of us? We're your family, right?" Naruto nearly crushed the doorknob he'd been holding, something that they all noticed. Naruto turned back and said, "Why should I tell you anything? You've made it perfectly clear that you don't care about me." His parents were about to reprimand him when his words really hit them. They had been neglecting him nearly his whole life. Kushina nearly burst into tears. "Oh God. Naruto, save it." Naruto said, glaring at her, "I've gone 10 years without you. I don't need you now." With that, Naruto headed off on his journey, leaving one distraught mother, one ashamed father, one annoyed brother, and one concerned sister. Naruto was about to leave when he noticed something. It was a girl about his age. She was looking around like she was lost. Naruto was by no means a pervert. That title belonged to his godfather, but even he couldn't help but notice that this girl was stunning. Not to mention that her chest was huge for someone their age. Nope. Not a pervert, just observant. She was about 5 feet 4 inches with brown hair and blue eyes, wearing a red tank top, which would have shown off a lot of cleavage if it weren't for the black undershirt, white short shorts over black biker shorts, yellow and black sneakers, a yellow fanny pack, lastly, a red bow on her head, letting 2 bangs fall to either side of her head while the rest was left flowing down to her shoulders. Omega Ruby clothes but anime face and body design. Naruto walked over and decided to help her out. May Maple was having a bad day. It started off easy enough, but then when she went to Littleroot Town to get her first Pokemon, a ghost attacked her. Then her bike got destroyed, and now she couldn't find her way to Professor Birch's lab. She was about ready to give up when she heard a voice, "Excuse me, you look lost." She spun around to see what was quite possibly the hottest guy she had ever seen in her entire life. That included the models in fashion magazines. She blushed bright red as she remembered his statement. She shyly scratched her head. "Why yeah. I just came from Petalburg City so I don't know my way around. I'm trying to find Professor Birch's lab." Naruto smiled at her, making her face heat up again, and said, "I'll show you the way, follow me." As the two walked through town, May noticed people laughing and commenting on them. She thought they were making fun of her, until her companion said, "Don't worry, they're talking about me." She gave him a confused look and he said, "I was born an albino, so everyone always makes fun of me. Because of that, I don't really have many friends." May nodded and said, "It's lonely, isn't it, not having any friends?" At his look, she said, "My daddy's the gym leader in Petalburg, so everyone was either afraid of me or just using me. I never had any real friends either." Naruto stopped and turned to her. She stopped as well. "Well then, if I'm not being too forward, how would you like to be friends?" She smiled and said, "I would love it." This day was turning out better than May would have ever thought. Naruto held out his hand. "Naruto Shirogane." He said using his other name, he made it up so people wouldn't associate him with his family. She took his hand and shook, May Maple. With that, they headed off to the lab. When the two arrived, Naruto walked in to see the professor with 3 Pokeballs waiting for someone. When he noticed them, he walked over and said, "You must be May. Norman told me you'd be coming. I hope you found the place alright." May chuckled and said, "Well, I wouldn't have if it wasn't for Naruto." "Ah. Well, thank you Naruto for helping her." After Naruto's nod, he led them over to the Pokeballs and said, "Well May, you have these 3 to choose from." He then let the Pokemon out revealing a Mudkip, a Trico, and a Torchic. May took a look at them, and after not liking the Trico's attitude, and having the Mudkip shoot her with water, she chose the Torchic. "Ah, he's a cutie," she said while petting the small chick. Professor Birch then took an opportunity to speak up. "Say May, do you want to give Torchic a nickname?" Naruto gave all his Pokemon one. She looked thoughtful for a minute before saying, "Flicker. Do you like that? The little fire." "Torchic. Tor." The little Pokemon squeaked. "I guess that's a yes," May said. Birch spoke again. "May, you don't know a lot about Pokemon, do you?" She stopped and turned around. "Is it that obvious?" "Not really, your dad told me. But back to what I was saying, why don't you two travel together?" "Us?" Naruto said, speaking up for the first time since they arrived. Birch nodded. "Why not? You two get along great, and you can teach May how to be a great trainer." Naruto nodded and said, "Well May, I'll leave it up to you." She took less than a second to say, "Sounds great." So May got her pink Pokédex and 5 Pokeballs and the 2 companions left the lab to see Naruto's siblings talking to a boy with a Pikachu. They ignored them and headed on out of town toward Petalburg City. While they were walking, they started to hear some ghostly wailing from the woods on either side. May hid behind Naruto and started shaking. Naruto merely chuckled and said, "Duskull, come on out." As he said that, a small skull Pokemon appeared and floated around them. It went over to May, who kept trying to put Naruto between herself and the ghost Pokemon. Naruto just placed her in front of himself and said, "Calm down May. Duskull just likes to play, he seems to really like you." "Duskull," the little Pokemon said. May didn't share the sentiment, lucky me. As the two continued on, they noticed that Duskull kept following them, and he kept trying to set himself on May's head. After a few minutes Naruto said, "Why don't you catch him?" "Huh." May said. "Duskull obviously wants to go with you." May fidgeted a bit and said, I'm kinda afraid of ghosts." She expected Naruto to laugh at her, but instead he said, "I was too. But one of my Pokemon is a ghost type, so I learned not to be afraid of them. Plus Duskull doesn't mean to be scary. He tries to make people laugh so that they won't be afraid of him. To tell you the truth, you're the first person he wanted to travel with." May thought about this and took another look at the little Pokemon. Now that she wasn't scared, she saw that he had a small glimmer of hope in his eye, along with some longing. "Ah. He just wants a friend, and I was running around screaming." She smiled at the Duskull and said, "Well, now that I look at him, he is kinda cute." Duskull floated around cheering while May pulled out a Pokeball and caught him. "I think I'll call him Soul." As they continued to Petalburg, May decided to start a conversation. "So, you have more than one Pokemon?" Naruto nodded. "Yep, I have 6 already." "Wow. How long have you been a trainer?" "Just since 3 days ago. I've been friends with these guys for years though." "Oh. Maybe when we get to my place we could let them out to play with mine and my dad's." "That sounds nice. So the professor said you could teach me how to be a better trainer." "Yeah. Let's wait until we get there before we start." May nodded and the two continued walking in a comfortable silence. Petalburg City. They soon arrived in Petalburg City. As the sun was beginning to set, Naruto couldn't help but look around at all the huge buildings. It was definitely much bigger than Littleroot. When they got to the gym, they walked in to see May's father training a Slacketh. He turned to them and said, "May, I didn't expect you home so soon." He then focused his gaze on Naruto. "And who's this?" May hugged her father and said, "This is Naruto Shirogane. We met in Littleroot and started traveling together." "Really?" Norman said while narrowing his eyes. Suddenly, a woman who Naruto guessed was May's mother, and a small boy walked into the room. The woman said, "Well, it's nice to meet you Naruto. I'm Caroline and this is Max. Come on in, dinner is about ready. Since you're a friend of May's you're more than welcome to stay the night here." Naruto scratched the back of his head. Oh, I don't want to impose. Caroline just smiled. I insist. I can't let May's first real friend sleep in a hotel. Naruto nodded and watched as May walked out with her mother. It was then that May's father appeared in front of him, looking Naruto straight in the eye while a slacking appeared behind him. Listen here, Naruto. May is my precious baby girl, and if you hurt her, you'll have me to deal with. Understood? Naruto nodded. He had seen Minato get like this when guys came over to ask Nozomi out. Norman then said, "Excellent, now let's eat." He walked down the hall while Naruto and Max followed. Max then said, "You got off light. I remember when this one guy went too far with hitting on May and Dad nearly beat him to death." Really? He also let his Pokemon out to play with Norman's and May's along the way. Naruto then got sat down while Caroline served the food. It was really good, chicken parmesan with clam chowder. As they started talking, May decided to ask Naruto about her lessons. "So Naruto, when do you want to start teaching me?" Everyone stopped and raised an eyebrow at this. Naruto didn't notice and said, "We can start after dinner if you'd like." Caroline said, "Oh, if you're teaching her something then we don't mind if you want to do it here." Naruto said, "Okay then. Well, May, first lesson, Pokemon types." Everyone realized that it was Pokemon training lessons and listened in. There are 18 Pokemon types. Any decent trainer knows these types and their matchups by heart. Noticing her worried expression, he said, "Don't worry, it's easier than it sounds. I have a trainer guide I can give you later." May nodded as Naruto continued. Secondly, moves also have types, but what moves they can learn depend on the Pokemon, not the Pokemon's type. For example, Tyranitar and Ogren, both weak to water, can learn Surf. May nodded. So Pokemon can learn moves outside of their type? Naruto nodded. Exactly. For example, my Mudkip, Cool, Nose Tackle, Water Gun, Mud Slap, Bide, and Ice Ball. May considered this before motioning for him to continue, which he did. Third is that Pokemon, just like humans, have their own personalities and quirks. They are all different and unique. The rest of the basics can only be learned in battle. We can do a quick practice round if you want. May nodded, and after dinner, they went out and got their Pokemon. They then took positions on opposite sides of the dirt field outside and selected a Pokemon. "Go Flicker," May said as the Torchic emerged from the ball. "Eros, you're up," Naruto said calmly as his Charmander made an appearance. Max was overjoyed. "Whoa, a Charmander." Naruto spoke up before they started. "Your Pokédex can tell you what moves your Pokemon knows." May nodded and pointed the device at Flicker. Its computerized woman's voice carried through the area. The moves Torchic is able to use are Ember, Peck, Scratch, and Swift. Naruto nodded and said, "That's a pretty impressive moveset for a starter. Now, let's get started." May nodded and said, "Flicker, use Ember." Naruto watched as Eros swatted them away with his tail. A Fire-type move won't do much to another Fire-type. She flinched and said, "Let's try Swift." Torchic nodded and shot the stream of stars at Eros. "Eros, jump to the left and grab that rock." The lizard did just that, and used the large rock as a shield. "Impressive," Norman said as he watched. Swift can't be dodged, so he blocked it with a rock instead. Naruto then smirked a bit. Now to practice defense, Eros used Dig. Eros jumped underground and stayed there. Combat Lesson 1. May heard Naruto say, "Pokemon battling is rarely ever straightforward. It goes up and down, backwards and forward, diagonally, side to side and everywhere else you can think of." Metal Claw. Eros jumped out of the ground and attached with lengthened, metal claws. "Chick!" Flick cried as it was sent down to the ground. After Flick got up, Naruto said, "Lesson 2. You need to be aware of the battlefield, every aspect of it. For example, Eros, Ember above Flick." Eros knew what to do and fired a blast of Ember at the tree above Flick. Before May and Flick realized what he was doing, a tree branch fell right on Flick's head. Naruto watched as Flick tried to stand up. "He's got heart. I think that's enough for this round. Next?" May nodded and retrieved Flick, taking him over to Max. She then pulled out her other Pokeball and said, "Let's go Soul." Duskull came out and flew around the field. Caroline gained a confused look on her face. I thought May was afraid of ghosts. Eros walked over to Naruto. "Charmander. Hey now, they just started. Cut them a little slack." May's eye twitched as she realized that the lizard was probably mocking her. Naruto returned Eros and picked another ball. "Your turn, Frey." A Bagon appeared out of the ball and roared its name. Everyone was surprised to see another rare Pokemon. May took out her Pokédex to get a read on Soul's moves. The moves Duskull is able to use are Will-O-Wisp, Hex, Dark Pulse, and Confuse Ray. Naruto was pleasantly surprised. Who knew that Duskull had such an impressive array of moves? Dark Pulse, May said as Soul launched the attack. Dodge, Naruto said, still completely cool. Fray, Dragon Rage. Fray spat out a ball of blue and yellow fire at Soul. May remembered she was supposed to help him and said, dodge to the right. Duskull did just that, only to see Fray right in front of him. Lesson number 3. Try not to call out a direction if you can, your enemies will use that. Bite. Fray grabbed Soul in his jaws and threw him around a bit before letting him go. Soul floated around a bit before twitching a bit. Naruto noticed this and called the match. May put Soul back in his Pokeball and sighed as Naruto came forward. Lesson 4, and the most important lesson. She looked up at him at this. Pokemon have limits, and it's pushing past those limits that makes them stronger, but at the same time, you need to recognize when they've done enough. If they go too far, they can get seriously hurt, just the same as humans. May nodded. Bus still seemed a bit down. Hey, don't make that face. Naruto gave her a small smile. I've been training with these guys for years, while you just started today. Don't beat yourself up. She smiled and nodded. A few minutes later, Naruto had finished brushing his teeth and was changing into his pajamas when the door opened. He turned to see May in a towel. Meanwhile May, forgetting that Naruto was in the bathroom, walked in on him in his boxers. The two stared for a few seconds before they blushed and dissolved into both trying to apologize and explain at the same time, until they both calmed down and May said, I'm sorry, I didn't remember you were in here. Naruto nodded, quickly put his pajama pants and tank top on and said, well, I'll just head to my room then. Naruto tried to squeeze past May and their chests accidentally touched as he walked past. They both blushed harder as Naruto walked to the guest room. When he arrived, he sat down on the futon and tried to go to sleep. May's room. May lay down on her bed trying to sleep. She had changed into a pink thigh-length nightie, and she couldn't sleep. She couldn't help but be worried about the rest of her journey. Her door slipped open and her mother appeared in the doorway. Can't sleep? She asked. May sighed, shook her head, and sat up. Her mother sat beside her and asked, want to talk about it? May was silent for a few minutes before speaking. I'm just worried about my journey. Naruto is so much better than me. What if I screw up? What if I make a mistake? What if I disappoint you and Daddy? Caroline smiled at her daughter and said, Sweetie, we will never be disappointed by you. We will always love you, no matter what. If you make a mistake or screw up, then so what? That's life. May nodded and smiled, before she heard her mother's next sentence. Now, let's talk about the stud you brought home. May's face went atomic red as she yelled, Mom. The next day, Naruto and May had just gotten their things together and retrieved their Pokemon. May's family was there to see the off. Naruto would have challenged Norman, but after seeing that slacking, he figured that he'd better get a bit stronger. Before they left, Max had said that he wanted to go with them so he could learn more about Pokemon. Naruto had known that they would probably be going into some dangerous situations, so he compromised and told Max that he would see about getting Birch to accept him as an assistant. So Naruto did, and Birch was more than happy to train an aspiring professor, plus Brandy was happy that there would be someone her age there. Anyway, the two were walking down toward Petalburg Forest. May had her nose buried in the trainer's guide. Hey Naruto, I think I found what I want to do, she said. Naruto turned to her. Really? What's that? May smiled. To tell you the truth, I didn't think that I was cut out for being a trainer, but I think that being a coordinator is right up my alley. Naruto nodded and thought about it. May would make an excellent coordinator. If that's what you want to do, then go for it. She nodded, then asked him about a Pokemon on the coordinator page. Oh, that's a Beautifly. Do you want one? She nodded. So Naruto continued, well, I don't know where you can get wild Beautifly, but I do know where to get Wurmple, which can evolve into a Beautifly. Right up here in Petalburg Forest. I can help you catch one if you want. She cheered as they stopped at the entrance to the forest. When they went in, Naruto was careful to keep an eye out for anything wrong. Now Wurmple like to eat the leaves on the forest floor, or they like to stick onto trees. But you need to be careful, they live in groups, so they might attack if one is threatened. May nodded. then caught sight of something in the bush. She strayed and walked over to it. Naruto noticed and followed her. When they found themselves at the bush, Mei pulled apart the branches and saw a sleeping pink Wurmple. Damn! Naruto said as he saw the shiny Pokemon. I thought Wurmple were red, Mei said confused. Naruto shook the amazement from his eyes and said, it's a shiny Pokemon. They're incredibly rare, like 1 in a million. Wow! Mei said as the Wurmple started to wake up. Naruto silently prayed that it wasn't like the other shiny he'd met. When the Wurmple saw them, it got terrified and tried to run away, but its legs were damaged, something that they both had just noticed. So Mei picked the little bug Pokemon up, ignoring the squirming, and waited until Naruto came back with some super potion. When the Wurmple felt the stuff on its legs, it cried out in pain before it started to subside. Naruto took out a pillow from his bag and placed the Wurmple on it. While it sat there, Mei noticed the terrified look in its eye. Why is it so scared? Naruto shook his head. I was afraid of this. Most Pokemon have a natural camouflage for the area that they live in, but shiny Pokemon are often kicked out of the group to ensure the other's survival, since they stand out too much. This little guy has probably been alone his whole life. The other Wurmple must have injured his legs to make him easier prey. Mei reached out to pet the small bug, who flinched, until she saw that Mei wasn't going to hurt her. Poor thing. Say, how do you know so much about how shiny Pokemon are treated? Naruto sighed and brought out a Pokeball. He released the Pokemon inside, revealing Eros, his Charmander. When the little lizard saw the Wurmple, its eyes went wide as it looked like it had been struck. Eros looked to Naruto, who nodded. Then Naruto took out a rag from his back and got it wet in a stream nearby. Naruto then wiped the rag on Eros' skin, revealing that Eros was covered in orange body paint. When it was all off, Eros was revealed to be yellow, instead of orange. Mei understood almost instantly. I see. So Eros was. Naruto nodded. Yeah. The other Pokemon left him on Cinnabar Island to fend for himself, where I found him. He was ashamed of his color, so he made me cover him in paint to look normal. Wurmple, after hearing all this, decided that these humans weren't all bad. After all, they accepted her, so they must be nice. With that, Wurmple was covered by a white light. Everyone watched as Wurmple changed into a yellow cocoon, with one eye peeking out. She evolved already. Mei yelled. Naruto nodded. Bug Pokemon evolve very fast. Some have been known to go from their first forms to their final forms in a single day. The new Silcoon tried to snuggle up to Mei. After Mei asked Silcoon if she wanted to travel with them, the cocoon Pokemon nodded and Mei caught it, her third Pokemon. She had decided to name her new Pokemon, Luna. Eros watched the exchange before looking down at its scales. He clenched his hands and went back into his ball. Naruto sighed at Eros' stubborn nature. The 2 humans and 1 cocoon walked through the forest, Mei helping Luna work through her issues the whole way, though near the end, the 2 turned a corner and saw a man in a lab coat standing in the path looking around. He saw them and asked, "Excuse me, I don't mean to bother you, but, have you seen any shroomish around here?" Naruto shook his head and then rushed forward to pull the man back to them. It was then that a fist sailed over the area the man's head previously occupied. Naruto saw 2 men dressed in wannabe pirate costumes with an A symbol on their outfits. One of them snarled and said, "Nice moves, kid, but we need you to hand him over now." Naruto narrowed his eyes and instead pulled out a Pokeball, while Mei did the same. It was then that they noticed Luna and gained a twinkle in their eye. Say, why don't we take that Silcoon too? The other nodded and leered at it, before his vision was drawn to Mei. How about we keep the girl holding it too, she looks good. Both Naruto and Mei were livid at this, so Naruto tossed out Eros, still yellow, while Luna wanted to fight, so Mei sent her out. The 2 thugs tossed out a pair of Puccina, so the battle began. Eros used Metal Claw. Naruto said, and Eros grew long metal claws before charging one of the 2 dog Pokemon, taking it by surprise with its speed, and Eros knocked the Pokemon back. Thug number 2 said, "Puccina use Bite," he said while pointing to Luna. Harden, Luna. When the dog bit Luna, it got at least 1 broken tooth, and Mei continued with a small new combo, Tackle. So Luna shot towards the Puccina, Harden. The end result. Instead of getting hit by a softish cocoon, it instead got hit by what felt like a brick wall, knocking it out cold. Naruto, still as calm as ever, said, "Shadow Claw." Eros shot forward toward the remaining Puccina, and slammed the claw of shadow into its face. knocking it out as well. The two thugs returned their Pokemon and were about to try more direct approach, but they were stopped. Not by the Pokemon, but by Naruto's eyes. They didn't know what it was, but those eyes spelled death, so they returned their Pokemon and hightailed it out of there. It was then that Luna started to glow again. She grew wings, became smaller, and turned into a stunning Beautifly. The researcher said, "Thank you two so much. How can I repay you?" He started to search his pockets for something, but stopped as he heard a whispering, a gentle nudging in his mind. It guided him, without his knowledge, to give Naruto a certain item. "Here, I'm afraid that this is all I have right now," he said as he gave them a rather large stone. It was black, like obsidian, and had two ridges on the sides, jutting out about an inch from the stone. Naruto didn't know what it was, but that stone. Something about it was. "Naruto? Are you okay?" Naruto snapped out of his staring and said, "Yeah? Are you okay? You were staring at that rock for a bit." Naruto gave a shy smile and said, "I'm fine. It's nothing." A little ways away, sitting in a tree, was a figure covered in a tan cloak. The only thing that could be seen was a few strands of black hair and glowing red eyes. "Well, he seems like one to watch. But that rock, it seems familiar. Ah well. I'm sure it'll come to me." Back with Naruto and Mei. The two had made camp and were eating dinner with their Pokemon, though two were off to the side engaged in conversation. "Why are you so negative about being a shiny?" Luna asked Eros. "Why? It's because of this that my family abandoned me. Why should I be proud of it?" "Because it's you," Luna said, stopping Eros in his tracks. "I don't hate my color. I love it. It makes me unique. Plus, we still found acceptance with people who care about us despite our color in the end, right?" Eros was stunned at her words, so simple, but so right. "Besides, if they can't accept you for who you are, then screw them. They don't deserve you." Eros looked down at his hands and found his resolve. She was right. At that moment, a mental block in Eros' head broke. He had pushed past his problem. It was then that he too started to glow in a white light. Naruto, noticing them and deducing what they were talking about, smiled as Mei and everyone else watched. When the light died down, now there was a yellow Charmeleon in the clearing, giving off an aura of confidence like never before. Naruto smiled at his oldest friend and nodded to him when they made eye contact. After dinner, they all decided to hit the sack, so Naruto and Mei got into their sleeping bags while their Pokemon got comfortable. As Naruto drifted off to sleep, he thought it felt deeper than before. Unknown area. Naruto shot up and looked around. He definitely wasn't in the forest anymore. He was in an enormous traditional temple. Looking around, he saw tapestries depicting legends he hadn't even heard of. As he looked around, he heard a voice behind him, a deep and powerful voice. "So, are you going to turn around, human?" Naruto slowly turned to find an enormous fox with 9 tails sitting in front of him. It had red-orange fur with black markings around its eyes, and human-like front paws. "Who? No. What are you?" It chuckled. "I'm not surprised you don't know me. I'm not as well known as the other overseers, or legendaries as you humans call them." "You're a legendary." It got a bit irritated. "Yes, I am. Name's Kurama. Now as to why I'm here. I've been in self-imposed exile for a few hundred years." "Why?" Kurama gave him a deadpan look. "Do you see how big I am? I can't exactly hide like the others." Naruto nodded and continued to look around. "Fair enough. Where are we?" "Your mind. And before you ask, I've been here your whole life." "Why?" "I got tired of being alone, so I decided to help you out with your destiny issue." "What destiny issue?" "Never mind that. Not important right now. Just know that you're very important, Kit, and that I am here to help you. Used to be when I did this, I'd just be a voice in the head, but people kept ignoring me or thinking that they were crazy. Not fun. Anyway, just go back to sleep. You have an even greater duty to attend to." Naruto gained a scared expression and asked, "What?" Kurama gained a serious face and said, "Tapping that sweet brunette you're traveling with." Naruto face faulted. "What? Hot bodies like that don't come along every 1,000 years, ya know. Tap it before something goes wrong." Naruto's eye twitched. "I'm leaving now." Kurama couldn't resist one last shot. "I'll corrupt you yet, Kit." As Naruto and Mei walked across the bridge to Rustboro City, Naruto couldn't get his thoughts off the encounter with Kurama. What did he mean about my destiny? His status as a legendary is also confusing. I've never even heard of him. He chose to ignore said Fox's muttering within his mind about disrespectful brats. Naruto? His companion asked, are you alright? Naruto smiled and said, yeah, I was just lost in thought. As the two entered the city, Naruto gave Mei another lesson. Now, when you enter a new city, the first thing to do is look for the Pokemon Center. Even if your Pokemon aren't hurt, it's still a good idea to get them checked out. Mei nodded as the two headed to the brick building with the telltale Pokeball symbol on the front. Hello there. What can I do for the two of you? Nurse Joy asked.
Naruto snapped his fingers as he remembered something. Before I forget, all Nurse Joy and Officer Jenny look nearly identical. Though they all have small differences, this Joy is just a centimeter taller than the one in Oldale Town.
Joy giggled a bit and said, that's impressive, people rarely ever notice that. Mei nodded in understanding as the two handed their Pokeballs over. We just need a checkup, Naruto said. The nurse nodded and gave the tray of Pokeballs to the Chansey nearby, who took them back to an examination room. Naruto and Mei waited for about a half an hour before Chansey came back and gave a clipboard to Nurse Joy. Her eyes widened a bit as she called them over. Excuse me, may I speak to you two for a minute? They walked up as Nurse Joy explained the situation. Mei, it appears that your Duskull is infected with Pokerus, and he's passed it on to all the others. Mei got worried. What is that? Some kind of disease? Is it dangerous? Naruto placed a hand on her shoulder and gave her a reassuring smile. Don't worry, Mei. Pokerus is actually a good thing. At her confused look, he explained, while it is a disease, Pokerus has positive effects on Pokemon. Really? Like what? She asked. Naruto thought for a minute. How to explain it? You read about Pokemon stats in the guidebook, right? She nodded. Well, Pokerus accelerates the growth hormones that raise stats, causing stats to grow much more per level than normal. Mei nodded again as he continued. Pokerus is also highly contagious, usually spread by physical contact, which is why both our teams have it. However, it'll go away in a few weeks, which is why we need to take advantage of it while we have the chance. So it just makes them stronger. Mei surmised. Nurse Joy interjected, actually, it also has one other effect. Some Pokemon have a special, hidden, ability which only one in every 1,000 of that species possess. Pokemon infected with Pokerus sometimes activate their hidden ability in exchange for their old ability. Naruto scratched the back of his head. Sorry, Nurse Joy, I should have let you explain it. She shook her head with a smile. Oh no, it's fine. It's actually refreshing to see a trainer who actually studied up on Pokemon biology and health. With that, the two sat back down, Naruto thinking up a training program to take advantage of the Pokerus growth abilities in the little time they had, while Mei booked them a room at the center. After they got their Pokemon back, Naruto went off to find the gym, Mei going along. When they found it, they went inside and saw a man at the front desk. He looked up to see them and said, "Are you two here for a battle?" Naruto stepped up. "I am." "She's a spectator." The man nodded and spoke into an intercom. "Roxanne, a challenger is here." Then a voice sounding about their age responded, "Excellent. I was getting seriously bored, send them in." He looked back to them and said, "She usually teaches at the trainer's school, so you're lucky to catch her. Head back through those doors." Naruto walked in to find himself at one end of a large, rock-themed field. Mei took a seat on the stands as the other door opened. In walked a black-haired, red-eyed girl in a school uniform. She looked at them and turned to Naruto. "I'm Roxanne, so I assume you're my challenger?"
Naruto nodded with a smile. She pulled out a Pokeball and said, "Well, it's not every day I get such an attractive one."
Naruto blushed a bit as he pulled out his own Pokeball. She chuckled a bit as the referee said, "This will be a 2-on-2 battle. It will end when both of one trainer's Pokemon are unable to battle." "Geodude, get to it," Roxanne said as she sent out her first Pokemon. When he saw his opponent, Naruto tossed his own Pokemon, Naruto Shirogane. "Cool, you're up first." "Mudkip," the small Pokemon said with a smile, before it shot a blast of water at Mei. "A water type A. Hope you didn't think that would rattle me." "Geodude, tackle." The small rock Pokemon shot forward and tore up the ground in its path. "Dodge," Naruto said calmly as Cool jumped over the attack. "Keep tackling," Roxanne ordered. Naruto watched as they continued. Cool was dodging every hit, so why? Turn with the momentum and use rollout. Geodude did exactly that, using the force of the tackle attack. it turned and rolled toward Cool, who was still in the air. Naruto narrowed his eyes and thought up a plan to weather the attack. Cool, Ice Ball. Cool nodded as it started flipping and encasing itself in a ball of hardened ice. The two collided and kept colliding over and over again. Roxanne analyzed the stalemate. Ice Ball and Rollout both get more powerful with each hit. He's damaging Geodude just as much as he's being damaged. Water Gun. Roxanne's eyes went wide as a powerful blast of water shot through the ice and slammed Geodude up against a rock. She thought up a plan to at least injure Cool. Use Dig. Geodude dug underground and almost immediately shot up and grabbed onto Cool. Self-destruct. Naruto flinched as the explosion rocked the field. When it cleared, it showed a knocked-out Geodude and a barely standing Cool. What? He thought, Cool's no slouch, just like the others, but even he shouldn't have been able to stay conscious after that, especially at point-blank range. Unless. Naruto quickly took out his Pokédex and pointed it at Cool. His eyes went wide as he saw the cause. He smiled, put his dex away, and said, "Come on back, Cool, you've done enough." Cool looked back, flinched at the pain, and nodded as Naruto returned him to his ball. Roxanne did the same to Geodude and said, "Well, this is the last round. Don't hold back now, isn't that right, Nosepass?" she said as she sent out her strongest Pokemon. Naruto took out another ball and said, "Let's go, Sage." The small grass type jumped around excitedly for a bit before settling on a serious face. Sage, Pin Missile. Sage's fingers and quills glowed whitish-green and shot out at Nosepass. Harden. Nosepass went stone still as the missiles bounced off of him. Vine Whip. Vines shot out of Sage's arms and sped toward Nosepass. They were much faster than most Pokemons, so Roxanne didn't think of a plan until Nosepass had been hit a few times. Grab then and use Thunder Wave. Naruto, knowing what she was trying to do, told Sage to withdraw his vines. Sadly, a small bit of electricity got onto the vine and shocked Sage, rendering him paralyzed. Sage twitched as he tried to move, but each time he did, his muscles froze up. Roxanne smirked and said, "To ensure that this works, lock on." Nosepass' eyes glowed red as a red bullseye appeared on Sage's head. Zap Cannon. A compacted ball of electrical energy appeared on Nosepass' hands. He shot it and it screamed right at the bull's eye on Sage's head. Sage was sent rolling along the ground, beaten up, but still conscious. Naruto watched, worried, as Sage struggled to get back up. Roxanne, impressed with Sage's endurance, said, "Impressive. But this is the last shot." Zap Cannon again, full power. An even larger ball of energy gathered in Nosepass' hands as Sage finally got to his feet. May, watching from the stands, thought, "Damn, these gym battles can get intense. But I know Naruto and Sage can pull through." Nosepass fired the ball of energy as Sage waited. Naruto was seriously worried. Until the attack hit. All three people and one Pokemon in the arena were stunned as Sage held the ball in his hands, struggling as it pushed him back. Naruto's eyes went wide as he realized what happened. Roxanne was seriously confused. She had no idea what was happening. Wait. Doesn't the Chespin line have? Oh no. Sage spun around and threw the ball back at Nosepass, screaming, "I am bulletproof." The ball of electricity flew back at Nosepass and slammed full force into it. After an explosion of power, Nosepass was revealed to be knocked out. The referee held up a flag and said, "Both of Roxanne's Pokemon are unable to battle. The winner is Naruto Shirogane." May cheered as Naruto returned Sage. Roxanne sighed as she returned her Pokemon. "Well, that was a fun battle. Naruto, I hereby award you with the Stone Badge." Naruto took the badge and placed it into his badge case. "Thank you. Now, I think we need to head back to the Pokemon Center." Roxanne nodded and said, "I'll join you." So the three left the gym and headed to the center. On the way, May said something that had been on her mind. "I still don't get it. How did Sage survive that last Zap Cannon?" Naruto nodded. "Well, the Chespin line had a special hidden ability called Bulletproof, which makes them immune to certain projectile moves." May placed a hand on her chin. "Wait, hidden ability? Then did the Pokerus bring it out?" Naruto nodded again. "Yep. Cool's damp ability as well. It activated during the self-destruct attack." Damp? Roxanne went into teaching mode at this. Damp negates moves like explosion and self-destruct. Don't worry, not every one of Naruto and May's Pokemon will activate their hidden abilities. Just a few. When they arrived, Naruto and Roxanne gave their Pokemon to the nurse and sat down. Roxanne then said, "Say, how would you like to help me out at the trainer's school tomorrow?" Naruto, surprised by the offer, said, "I wouldn't mind. How about you, May?" Nay thought and said, "Well, it couldn't hurt. I could also pick up some tricks for being a coordinator." Roxanne nodded, "We have a coordinator class if you want to attend." Naruto and May nodded and they went over what they would be doing the next day. Roxanne wanted Naruto to teach a battle strategy class and do a few practice battles with the kids, maybe knock the more cocky ones down a few pegs. May just wanted to learn, and since she was still new to being a trainer, she was going to stick to being part of the class. Apparently, there were all ages of kids in the school, all the way up to their age. So Naruto would teach the younger ones some tips, then come over to the older class and battle the cockier ones. Roxanne explained that she would have done it herself, but they wouldn't have changed, her being a gym leader and all, she was supposed to be stronger than normal trainers. Anyway, Roxanne got her Pokemon and went back to the gym in case any more challengers came back, while Naruto and May headed off to their rented room, but not before letting their Pokemon out into the pen out back. When they arrived, May looked around to see a bunk bed, a nightstand, and a desk complete with a computer. Naruto walked over to the bed, tossed his stuff to the side, and said, "I'll take the bottom." With that, he walked over to the bathroom and changed into his pajamas. After he was done, he lay down and went to sleep as May came out. As she climbed into the top bunk, Naruto couldn't help but open one eye and catch an eyeful of her black panties. He shook his head, turned over, and said, "Good night." May yawned out, "Night." The next day, Naruto and May were waiting for Roxanne outside the school. When she arrived, they went around touring the school and getting them to their classes. A few hours later, Naruto was walking down the hall to the advanced battle strategy class. Teaching the younger kids had been fun, but now it was time to knock some heads around. May had been in the coordinator class in the beginning, but now she should be in the class he was going to. When he opened the door, he saw that the students were mostly his age, and he immediately noticed May being harassed by a couple of guys with arrogant looks on their faces. Though that made his blood boil, his attention was further taken by his former siblings sitting near the front. "Aw shit." Though he also noticed the boy with a Pikachu near them, he and Menma seemed to be glaring at one another. He walked up to the guys bothering May, and just as one was about to try and slip an arm around her shoulders, Naruto grabbed him by the back of his collar and lifted him up off the ground. The hell? This, naturally, drew everyone's attention. Everyone noticed Naruto's annoyed look, though most of the ladies noticed that he was lifting the slightly muscular teen very easily with one arm. If you're too stupid to see that she doesn't appreciate your advances, then maybe you should go back to the basic classes, Naruto said as the guy was trying to get down. Menma stood up and asked, "Look who's talking." Naruto merely glanced over to him and said, "Menma, go back to your daydreams about being anything better than a second-rate trainer." Everyone chuckled at this as Roxanne's voice came from the doorway, "Well, that's an interesting strategy to start a class." Naruto walked to the front of the class with Roxanne. She then said, "Now, it has come to my attention that some of you are getting arrogant, so I brought in Naruto here to remedy that. Jonathan, Carter, head out to the field." The two guys hitting on May got up and walked out, sending Naruto nasty looks on the way. Menma raised his hand, "Can I get in on this too?" Roxanne nodded, seeing the telltale signs of arrogance coming off Menma. "What's your name?" "Menma Namikaze," he said, acting like that should give him the win. While everyone was talking about him being the son of the former champion, May walked past the boy with a Pikachu and heard him say, "Man, I hate that guy." She stopped and said, "What's the problem? I get that he's an asshole, but what did he do to you?" The boy turned to her and said, "He just acts like he's better than everybody, it gets on my nerves." May nodded, "I'm May Maple. What's your name?" He smiled and said, "Ash Ketchum, and this is Pikachu." "Pika Pie." The electric mouse Pokemon said. Suddenly, another boy appeared in front of May, took her hand, got down on one knee, and said, "My name is Brock Beautiful. Say, would you like to go out and..." May stopped him by chopping him on the head. He twitched on the ground as Ash said, "Sorry, he does that a lot." May noticed how almost every guy was looking at her with fear and said, "What? You got something to say?" They all turned away and headed out to the practice field. When they all arrived, Roxanne looked at the four students and asked, "Who wants to go first?" Jonathan stepped up and took out a ball. "This'll only take a minute. Go Mightyena." The dark dog Pokemon appeared with a snarl. Naruto took out his own Pokeball. Tex, you're up. Lar. The Pokemon said as it crossed its small arms. Roxanne, acting as the referee, said, begin, Mightyena use bite. Sandstorm. Naruto calmly said. Tex spun its horn and a spiraling sandstorm, catching Mightyena under its chest and launching it up into the air. Smack down. Tex jumped up and slammed down onto Mightyena, sending it into the ground. Rock smash. Lastly, a glowing fist came down and slammed into Mightyena's back, knocking it out cold. The whole class was stunned at the show of skill and power. Jonathan was one of the best in the class, and Naruto took him down easily. Tex scoffed and put itself back in the Pokeball. Naruto sighed as Carter took up a position on the other side of the field, crush Umbrelloom. Naruto, seeing the grass type, decided to give one of his Pokemon a chance to flex his claws, so to speak. Eros, let's get a workout in. Char. Eros said, staring into Breloom's eyes with a small smirk on his face. Whoa, a Charmeleon. Ash said, thinking back to his Charizard. A shiny one at that. Nozomi said, taking on a thinking pose. On the outside, she was the picture of calm, on the inside, she was panicking. This isn't what Naruto is supposed to be like, he's supposed to be weak, he's supposed to be asking me for help. Truth be told, Nozomi did care for Naruto. Far more than a sister should. To be fair, it was mostly her parents' fault, they didn't raise Naruto like a sibling to her. When they were children, Nozomi had taken to ignoring Naruto in an attempt to get closer to him. In theory, the plan was sound, but in practice, it failed miserably. Nozomi knew that Naruto was a big enough man to ask for help, so she thought that he would go to her if his treatment continued. Even when the other kids made fun of him, she always made sure to be there, but since he never bothered to look toward her, he never saw her caring eyes.
Back to the battle, Naruto started off with a simple tactic, Metal Claw. A rush.
Eros ran forward and slashed at Breloom, which was trying with all its power to dodge the lightning fast strikes. Eros abruptly switched tactics, and instead of going for slashed, it started jabbing, Shadow Claw. Eros' fist was covered in a shadowy projection of his regular claw and flew forward to nail Breloom right in the face, sending it flying back. Breloom got to its feet, sky uppercut, and rushed in with its fist dragging the ground. Naruto watched as it got loose, he waited until it was close enough and said, stop him. Eros slammed his foot down, stopping the fist from going up, flame burst. Eros quickly shot out a small blast of fire at Breloom, knocking it down and out. Naruto returned Eros and waited for Menma to step up. When he did, Menma took out his ball and said, you might as well give up now. I'm much more skilled than you. Granted I lost to Roxanne yesterday, but after a bit of training I'll be more than a match for her. What are you smirking at? Naruto chuckled and said, oh nothing. Menma scoffed and sent out his Pokemon, Go Trico. Tree. The little gecko Pokemon said, and it looked like it had an attitude to match Menma. Naruto took out his own ball and tossed it, your turn Drac. Ga Ostly, the ghost Pokemon said as it floated above the ground. Naruto, feeling a bit vindictive, decided to get the battle over quickly. Menma apparently had the same idea, use Absorb. Trico shot out a red beam of energy, but when it hit, Drac disappeared and more of them appeared all around Trico. Menma recognized the technique, double team? Hypnosis. Trico tried to look away, but wherever he looked, there was a pair of red eyes staring at him. Trico eventually succumbed and fell asleep, Venoshock. Drac shot out a blast of poison from its mouth and nailed Trico, knocking it out in one hit. Menma returned Trico and stormed off, no doubt sulking and pouting about how Naruto cheated. Nozomi sighed and watched as her white-headed brother went up to a girl and a boy. It seemed that he knew the girl, and she was introducing him to the other boy. Nozomi instantly recognized the way the girl looked at Naruto. No. I must not allow this, he's mine. Naruto and Mei left the school after talking to Roxanne again. They then decided to look around town for anything to do. After walking around for a while they stopped at a small diner downtown to have lunch. It even had a place for their Pokemon to get food too. As the two sat down and ordered their food, Mei asked a question that had been on her mind since they left the trainer school. So, what's the story between you and Menma? I remember seeing him when we left the lab, but you didn't want to get near him. Naruto sighed. He knew that this would come up sometime. What I'm about to tell you has to stay a secret. It's not majorly important or dangerous, but it will be troublesome. She nodded as Naruto sighed again. My name isn't Naruto Shirogane, it's Naruto Namikaze. Mei's eyes went wide. Then you're... Yep. Naruto then proceeded to explain his reasons for keeping it a secret and why he chose to give himself a new name. From their neglect to his own desire not to be associated with them. Mei was silent as Naruto explained his past. By the end, she was nearly in tears over his life. Oh Naruto. I am so sorry. Naruto shook his head. Don't worry about it, not your fault. Besides, I've decided that if they don't care about me, then I shouldn't care about them. A few minutes later, Naruto was sitting, stunned, as he watched Mei demolish an enormous burger and fries. He ate a lot himself, but come on. He was a big guy by anyone's standards. Mei was tiny compared to him. Where the hell was it going? His eyes slowly drifted down to her chest before he drew them back up to see her drinking down the last of a chocolate shake. After they finished eating, they wandered the city for a few more minutes before they heard someone shouting. They turned around to see another of the pirate wannabes running up to them carrying a briefcase and a tied-up Wingull. Naruto stepped into his path and slammed his shoulder into the guy's neck, dropping him into the ground and knocking the wind out of him. He tried to get up but Naruto placed a foot on his chest and kept him down. Then, and Growlithe ran up and kept him down as well. Also an officer Jenny drove up in a motorcycle with the scientist they'd helped before in the sidecar. She got out and cuffed the thug. You are under arrest. Then she tossed him into the sidecar and turned back to Naruto. Nice job with that takedown. You ever consider joining the force? Naruto smiled and said, maybe one day, for now I'm just gonna stick to training my Pokemon. She nodded and thanked them before speeding off. The scientist went up to them with the briefcase in hand. Oh, it's you two again. How can I thank you this time? His phone rang then. Excuse me please. Hello. Yes sir. Yes, it was the two trainers from before. Really? Alright sir. Would you two kindly follow me? With not much else to do, they let the Wingull go free, and followed the scientist to an enormous building. He took them inside to the top floor and said, please wait here for a moment. He then went inside the office for a minute, then he came back and said, please, right this way. Then he lead them in. They went up to an older man with light blue hair and a pleasant smile. So you two are the ones who I have to thank for saving those documents. Naruto nodded and asked, if I may, what is your name sir? He chuckled and said, ah, thank you for reminding me young man, I am Devon Stone. Stone? Naruto said with wide eyes. Mr. Stone noticed this. Yes. I see you recognize the name, or at least my son. Mei, confused at this, said, what's all the fuss about? Naruto turned to her and said, Mr. Stone's son, Steven, is the Hoenn League champion. Mei's eyes widened like Naruto's. Mr. Stone laughed and said, now, as to why I brought you two here. I must ask something of you. Those documents are very important. I need you two to deliver them to Captain Stern in the Slateport City shipyard, as well as delivering this letter to my son Steven in Dewford Town. I assure you that you will be rewarded for it. Naruto and Mei looked at each other until Mei said, we're going there anyway. Naruto nodded. Alright, we'll do it. Mr. Stone smiled and said, I'll start by rewarding you two for helping me this far. Please, take these. He handed them two watch-type devices. They had a thick leather strap going from the wrist 5 inches up the arm, with a glass screen set into the top. Naruto's was lined with green while Mei's was pink.
This is called the Poke Vice. It's a combination of the Poke Gear, Pokédeck, Poke Nav, and X Transceiver. Those are the first two production models. They're waterproof and come with fully loaded maps of every region, an extensive archive of everything you need to know, and a scanner to scan any language, move, Pokemon, or anything you can think of. He explained with a smile.
Mei was awed at the device. Wow. Is it really okay for us to take these? He nodded, of course. They were going to hit the market in a few months anyway. Should the documents make it to the shipyard, then you'll get even more. Near Mr. Briny's cottage. The next day, Naruto and Mei were walking toward a cottage near the sea. In testing out the Poke Vice, they had called Norman, and he had suggested asking Mr. Briny for a ferry to Dewford and Slateport. Mei had been excited, since she met him a few times when she was little. When they arrived, they saw an old man with a white beard cleaning a boat while a Wingull flew around. It was then that the Wingull saw them. It dived at them and landed on Naruto's head. Hey, are you the Wingull we saved? Win. It cried happily. Mr. Briny came up to them and said, Well, is that you, May? You were just a tiny girl when I met you last." After explaining their situation, Mr. Brinny was more than happy to ferry them across the sea after they'd helped Pico, his winggull. Within a few minutes, they were speeding along the water. Naruto was happy letting the wind blow across his face. The wind felt good in his hair. He had let it grow out a bit, down to a little bit past his shoulders, leading May to have some more romantic fantasies. They were going fine until Mr. Brinny brought the ship to a stop. "We've got a problem." They both walked up to the front to see a whole line of Lanturn and Chincho keeping them from proceeding. There were sheer cliffs on either side, so they couldn't go around, meaning that they were stuck. "What are they doing?" May asked. Mr. Brinny gained a grave look on his face. The Lanturn's leader claimed this area as his territory. Looks like he's no longer letting people by. Naruto thought for a minute, "So if we beat this Alpha Lanturn, then they'll let us pass?" "In theory." "All right then," Naruto said as he took his shirt and undershirt off. He also took off his socks and boots, got into his bag and took out a rebreather. He also took out Cool's ball and let him out. "We'll go." May instantly got worried. "What? You two are going into the water with a group of angry electric types?" Naruto shook his head as he sat on the back of the boat. "It's either this or we turn back." With that, Naruto fell back into the water with Cool following.
Underwater. Lanturn Reef. Naruto swam down with Cool and eventually found himself surrounded by Lanturn and Chincho. One swam forward. "What are you doing here?" Cool swam up. "We need to get through here, so we're going to challenge your leader. Take us to him." Naruto watched as they conversed. He then went along as they led the two to a small cave, where a rather big Lanturn was waiting. He swam out and glared at the two of them. Cool swam up and said, "You have two choices. Let us through, or fight me." The Alpha sparked a bit. "Bring it, short stack." Naruto was never more thankful that his rebreather let him speak underwater. "Tackle," he said as Cool shot forward and slammed into Lanturn. The two swam around tackling each other. Naruto analyzed the battle and decided that the odds were not in his favor. Water gun wouldn't do much to this opponent. Ice ball couldn't gain momentum in the water, and there was no mud for mud slap due to them being on a reef. Our only solid options are tackle and bide. Upon noticing that the Lanturn was prepping an electric attack, Naruto immediately said, "Bide now." Cool nodded and glowed with a white light as the attack shot through the water and slammed into Cool. He grit his teeth and bared it. Upon noticing what Cool was doing, Lanturn said something to all the rest, who looked pensive, but at a glare from Lanturn, they all complied and shot their own blasts at Cool. "Cool!" Naruto yelled as Cool was hit by every blast of electricity. Cool, meanwhile, was taking every single volt of electricity, taking in all that pain as energy. Naruto couldn't help but worry. There had been Pokemon who nearly killed themselves by absorbing too much with bide. Cool was almost dead from the electricity coursing through him, and just as he saw the light at the end of the tunnel, he felt something else. Naruto watched, stunned, as the bide turned into a pure white glow. Cool started to grow. When the glow subsided, Cool was now a marsh stomp. "You done goofed," Cool said as Lanturn shivered. Cool then opened his mouth and shot out a barrage of mud blasts, which all slammed into Lanturn. While Lanturn was dazed, Cool went up above him and karate chopped his hand down onto Lanturn. Lastly, Cool fired out a blue beam of electricity, encasing Lanturn in a solid block of ice. When the battle was over, Naruto grabbed Cool and nearly squeezed the life out of him. After a few minutes of Naruto making sure that Cool was alright, Naruto returned to the boat. On the boat. "What the actual fuck happened down there? I saw lightning and glowing blasts of murder." Naruto was slightly scared of May as she yelled at him. Cool was also scared, though after May calmed down and they explained what happened, she was just happy that Cool was alright. When the Pokemon went away, Mr. Brinny went along on the path to Dewford Town. When they arrived, he tied up the boat on the docks. "Alright, I'll be at the hotel. Just come and tell me when you're ready to head on to Slateport." They then went to the Pokemon Center, and after having their Pokemon healed, Naruto asked Nurse Joy, "Excuse me, but do you know where Steven Stone is? His father asked us to deliver a letter to him." "Oh, sure, he should still be in the Granite Cave on the North Beach. Just go down until you find yourself in an enormous room with a mural on the far wall." "Thank you," May said as they left to find the cave. Granite Cave. Naruto and May were looking around the cave for the mural building.
They eventually found themselves at a fork with a doorway on one side, and a staircase with pictographs on either side. They walked down and found the room they were looking for. It truly was enormous. It was tall enough for a couple dozen people to stand on each other's shoulders, and on the far wall, a massive picture, showing a tower taller than any they had ever seen. On one side was a volcano with a huge fire-breathing Pokemon, on the other, waves with a whale equals like Pokemon with fins so big they looked like wings. All up the tower and outside were Pokemon, flying up or bowing down to someone on the top. On the top of the tower were 3 people, one with long hair and horns holding a staff aloft, and 2 figures kneeling down before her, one with smaller horns of his own. Above them was an incredibly long dragon, spiraling through the sky and roaring with all its might. All 3 huge Pokemon seemed to be obeying the staff holder's commands. But at the foot of the tower were 9 other Pokemon, 8 of which he had never seen. A giant Tanuki, a flaming cat with 2 tails, a turtle with 3, a monkey with 4, a horse-looking one with 5, a slug with 6, a beetle with 7, an octopus and ox combo with 8, and the last was undoubtedly Kurama. Amazing, isn't it? A voice said. Naruto and Mei were drawn out of their gazing as someone spoke. It was a man wearing a black suit with purple lining and silver cuffs. He turned to them and said, "Now, who are you two?" Naruto shook his head and said, "I'm sorry. My name is Naruto Shirogane, and this is Mei Maple. Your father sent us with a letter for you," Mei said as she took the letter out of her bag and gave it to Steven. He took it and said, "Thank you, Sei. While you two are here, would you like to hear the story behind this mural?" They both nodded as Steven turned back to the mural. It started thousands of years ago.
Steven's story. There was once a priestess of a long-forgotten civilization. The silhouette of a woman was sitting on top of a tower, until she noticed something in the ocean and on the earth. She sensed something. 2 great beings were about to clash, their great struggle finally coming to a grand conclusion.
So she enlisted the help of 2 brave friends. The silhouette of a man surrounded by Pokemon appeared, the knight. He possessed an aura that made all Pokemon love him, but also an unmatched ferocity in battle. The next silhouette was of a woman in a flowing dress, speaking to a crowd, and the princess, pure of heart and adored by all, with the power to make anyone smile with her grace and beauty.
It showed the 9 Pokemon silhouettes as they roared and flexed their power. The 3 heroes each commanded 3 enormous and powerful Pokemon, capable of going toe-to-toe with legendaries.
The 3 silhouettes came together as the knight fought the 2 huge Pokemon while the princess sung. The knight held the 2 at bay and fought for his life while the princess calmed them, in order to stall the beasts and give the priestess time. While they fought, she used the power of the red orb and the blue orb to create the green orb, which she then used to call down the Grand Dragon. She rode the dragon into battle alongside her 2 friends, and together, they beat back the fighting Pokemon, sealing them away forever.
Once again the scene changed to the 3 heroes going their separate ways, and fading away as they walked. No one knows what happened to the 9 Pokemon, or the 3 heroes. But some say that the 3 gained immortality from their time among the Pokemon of ancient times. Legends say that they still walk the earth, waiting for the 2 ancient rivals to awaken and do battle once more.
2 balls of light, one green and one blue, were sitting next to each other. The red orb and blue orb currently sit at the peak of Mount Pyre, watching over the departed souls of the Pokemon. A glowing ball of green joined, making it a triangle, but the green orb has been lost since time immemorial. 1. That is what this mural means. Steven finished as the story ended. Whoa. Mei said with wide eyes. Amazing. Naruto joined in, while Kurama was looking at the mural with glazed eyes through Naruto's own. Steven nodded and stared at the mural for a few more minutes. Well, it was nice meeting you two, but I have a lot of work to do. So, I'll see you two sometime later. Naruto and Mei both waved as Steven walked away. The two stood there for a few more minutes, reflecting on the story Steven had told them. Eventually, Naruto turned to Mei, say, "Want to explore the cave a little more?" Mei nodded as they exited the mural room and walked down the other pathway. They both took out flashlights and flipped them on. After walking for about an hour, Naruto was about to suggest that they turn back, when the ground under Mei caved in. He quickly grabbed her hand, but the floor caved even more as he too fell. They slid along a rocky tunnel and eventually stopped in a large, dome-shaped room. When they looked around, they noticed that the room was empty, save for a podium, few pieces of metal with stylized artwork engraved on it, and some harnesses to attach them to something. May picked one up. What are these? Pokemon armor. Naruto picked another one up. No. It looks like it's more like a decorative piece, like Pokemon jewelry. May nodded and watched as Naruto gathered a few pieces and placed them into a special slot in his bag. They were actually really flexible, so Naruto could stow them easily. Meanwhile, May had walked up to the podium and took a look at it. Ooh. Hello. Naruto walked up and took a look at what she'd found. It appeared to be a leather choker with bits of the engraved metal, and a large clear stone hanging from a small length of chain in the center. The other was a belt with a metal buckle on it, and another clear gem in the buckle, with more patterns burned into the leather of the belt. May picked up the choker and put it on. It fits perfectly, and it's so soft and comfortable. Naruto, deciding to take a chance, slipped the belt on. It really was nice.
The two then looked around until they found the exit, a switch on the wall that opened up to a staircase, going up to another part of the Granite Cave, the same part where the ground gave way, but when they walked out, the door sealed right back up. Naruto walked over to where they fell to see fresh new rock covering the hole. The Pokemon must have patched it up.
With that little adventure over, Naruto and May left the Granite Cave and went to the Pokemon Center to book a room. 1 hour later, Naruto was lying on the bottom bunk of the bed, staring at the belt and the piece of metal from the cave. What are these things? They aren't decorative enough to be real jewelry, and they don't cover enough to be real armor. What the hell are you? May came out of the bathroom then. Whatcha doing? Nothing. Just thinking about what these things are. May climbed into her bunk and said, well, no use wondering now, we'll find out eventually. Yeah. I guess you're right. Night, May. Night. Naruto watched May's Pokemon as well as his own trained. Eros was helping Flicker control his fire, Tex and Frey were having an old-fashioned spar, and Drac and Sol were helping the rest learn to be more aware of their surroundings. Naruto's Pokemon weren't doing anything too strenuous because they had a gym battle to get to. May was working on contest moves, and she was coming up with some really good ideas. After a few more minutes of training, Naruto returned his team and headed off for the gym. When they arrived, Naruto found out that the gym leader had heard about him from Steven, and was already at the arena. When they got to the cave-style arena, Brawly chuckled and said, about time. I was beginning to think that you weren't coming. Naruto jumped up onto the rock platform on his side. I didn't expect Steven to tell you about me. Well, he really wants to battle you, but he wants to see you get stronger first. Naruto's eyes widened a bit. He wants to battle me? Why? Brawly shrugged and said, he just said that he wanted to understand your eyes, that day, whatever that meant. Naruto was stunned as he realized what Steven was talking about.
Flashback. Naruto was sitting in the stands as his father took on the challenger, Steven Stone. They were both down to their last Pokemon, Minato with his Scizor, and Steven with a Metagross. After a long and hard battle, Steven came out on top. Naruto watched as his father awarded Steven the championship cup. While his family felt sadness, Naruto felt a cold sense of satisfaction. Steven turned and smiled at the crowd, and at that moment, their eyes met. The two instantly recognized something in the other, not feelings, not memories. Power. They both had the same mind, a quick and decisive battle strategy. At that moment, they realized that when they battled, it would be a big one. Flashback end. Naruto sighed as he took out a Pokeball. You're up, Drac. Said ghost Pokemon floated around as Brawly sent out his Machop. Machop started off with secret power. Machop held its hand out as a ball of rock appeared in it. He then fired it off toward Drac. Dodge. Naruto said. Drac simply floated out of the way and faded into the shadows of the arena. Machop looked around, trying to find his opponent. It was only when Drac appeared behind him that Machop acted, use hidden power. Machop glowed before he quickly expelled a huge burst of power. Naruto watched, worried. Hidden power would take on a different type depending purely on the Pokemon. His fears were proven relevant when Drac was thrown back in massive pain. Brawly nodded and said, you'd better be careful. Machop's hidden power is a dark type move. As Machop walked up to Drac, Naruto tried to think of a way to beat him. Well, that could work. Drac knew a move that a poison type shouldn't. At this point, it was his most powerful move, but Drac still hadn't gotten the hang of it yet. Naruto caught Drac's eye and asked a silent question. Drac nodded as subtly as he could. Once Machop was close, preparing another hidden power,
Drac shot up, dazzling gleam. Drac's body was giving off a brilliant light. Machop was blasted back by the powerful fairy-type move. He actually can learn this move, by TM, but they don't exist here. Machop was completely knocked out. Naruto congratulated Drac, who seemed to be examining his body. Naruto wondered what Drac was doing, but he just shrugged it off. Naruto shook his head with a small smile and returned Drac. He then took out another ball. It's your show, Frey. Brawly took out his own last ball and said, time to fight Makuhita. Remember, it hasn't evolved yet. It did that while fighting Ash's Trico. Frey stared down the fighting Pokemon, who stared right back. Naruto sighed. Frey was kinda battle hungry. Ember. Frey blasted out a flurry of small flames at its opponent. Makuhita ran until it took cover behind a rock. Makuhita, cover to focus punch. Makuhita broke the rock off the ground and ran at Frey, charging up a focus punch. Naruto waited a few seconds, bite. Frey took the punch to the gut and bit down on Makuhita's head, Dragon Breath. Frey blasted Makuhita with a close quarter blast of dragon energy. When Frey finally disengaged, they were both disoriented from the damage they had taken, until they both fell forward, slamming their heads together. Frey was fine, due to his head being freakishly strong, but Makuhita felt like its head was just slammed into a brick wall, so it crumpled to the ground. The referee held up his flag, winner, Naruto Shirogane. Brawly returned Makuhita and turned to Naruto as they approached each other. I can see why Steven wants to fight you so much, you're seriously talented. It's my pleasure to give you the knuckle badge. Naruto took the fist-styled badge and placed it in his case. Mei ran up and congratulated Naruto, and Brawly chuckled a bit. So how about we go get something to eat? I'm starving. Naruto nodded as Mei's eyes sparkled. Seaside Snack Shack. Naruto was munching on a burger while Brawly was trying to eat his sushi. Thankfully, since they started traveling together, Naruto had grown used to Mei's eating habits. Brawly leaned in and asked, where does it all go? Naruto shrugged and elbowed Brawly's ribs when he saw the surfer's eyes straying south. After they ate, Naruto and Mei walked over to the hotel and found Mr. Brinny. When they did, Mei asked, if we left now, could we make it before sundown? He thought for a minute, maybe a little after dark if we hurry and the wind is right. After thinking about it for a few more minutes, they decided to chance it. Slateport City. Naruto and Mei had just arrived. After saying goodbye to Mr. Brinny, who would be leaving in the morning, the two set off for the shipyard. When they found it, they walked inside to see a number of workers making a huge ship, and also an even larger one covered by a cloth. They walked up to the man at the desk in the back, taking out the folder containing the documents. They walked up and informed the man at the counter that they were delivering the documents, but he told them that Captain Stern was at the Oceanology Museum. So after getting directions there, the two trainers headed to the museum and headed up to the second level to talk to the captain. As the two walked up to the second level, they saw an older man dressed in a suit looking at an old submarine exhibit. He looked over to them and said, why hello there. Are you two here for the tour? Naruto took out the documents once more and said, actually, we're here to deliver these. He took them and looked the first page over. Ah, the Devon papers. Thank you for delivering these to me. Here, let's go get you your compensation for delivering it all this way. Before they left, some more pirate wannabes came in. Man, that was boring. Now kid, how about you hand over that folder? Naruto's eye twitched, and he cracked his knuckle as he turned to them. A few minutes later, Naruto was calmed down, and the thugs were knocked out on the ground. Well, that was just embarrassing, said a deep, harsh voice from the stairs. Everyone looked to see a muscular man dressed in a modified wetsuit, with a dark smile on his face. He walked over to them and kicked the passed-out thugs. You've got some decent moves, kid. I would extend an offer to join me, but I sense that you'd just refuse.
You sense right, Naruto said while tensing up. Archie noticed this and said, calm down kid, name's Archie. Now, I'm a busy man, so I'll just take these idiots and leave for now. He grabbed the thugs by their shirts and walked off, but before he left, he turned back, his smile gone, but know this. Continue to interfere and I won't be so civil next time. A few minutes after they left, Naruto relaxed and turned back to Mei and Stern. Stern took off his hat and sighed. Well, that happened. Now, why don't you two go relax? Mr. Stone sent me this by mail, it's for you. He then took out an envelope from his pocket and gave it to them. With that,
He left for the shipyard. Naruto opened the envelope and saw a note. He handed it to May and she read it aloud. I sent this to Captain Stern so you could get your reward without needing to come back here. Don't spend it all in one place now. Mr. Stone. She turned to Naruto to see him gazing at the check with glazed eyes. She took it and took a look herself. $300,000. She looked back at the note to see a small P's. The documents were much more important than you realize. Naruto, snapping out of his gaze, said, so what do you want to do now? We still have a few days until the contest. May nodded. She had almost forgotten about that. Well, we need to pick up some more supplies, also we need to get the check cashed. I also need a dress for the contest. Alright, so we'll stop by the bank and get this cashed, then head to a hotel. We can go to the market in the morning. Naruto said as they left. When they eventually found the bank, it was a hassle. The teller called up the Devon Corporation to make sure the check was legit, and they eventually got the money. Then they rented a nice 2-bedroom hotel room at one of Slateport's best hotels.
The next day, Slateport Market. Naruto and May were walking around the market, looking for a store to buy supplies at. As they were walking, Naruto heard a commotion and looked to see
a Munchlax running. While that was strange in and of itself, this Munchlax appeared to be stealing food. It was also the Munchlax's eyes that Naruto found interesting. It didn't look like it wanted to steal the food. They also heard a few vendors muttering about how that Munchlax had been doing nothing but stealing for weeks. Naruto signaled May to follow him, and they both followed the Munchlax to a sewer entrance. When they went inside, they continued following it until they found where it was going. What is that smell? May asked while grimacing. Naruto looked around the corner, with May also trying to look. What they saw both made them angry and sad. It was a massive Garbodor keeping a few small Pokemon hostage. It appeared to be a Smoochum, a Zigzagoon, and a Lotad, with the Munchlax giving the Garbodor the food. Garbodor laughed and smacked Munchlax away, sending him rolling along the floor. The Munchlax got up and grit his teeth. Naruto pulled May back. She looked up at him and asked, what is going on? It looks like that Garbodor is holding those Pokemon hostage and making Munchlax steal food for him in exchange for not hurting them. I have an idea. What? You take Munchlax to the Pokemon Center and contact Officer Jenny, then explain the situation to her. I'll take care of Garbodor. May nodded as the two walked out. Hey, trash bag. Garbodor looked over and saw them. Naruto released Drac as May picked up Munchlax. May ran out of the sewer and beelined it for the Pokemon Center. When they arrived, May got Nurse Joy to contact Officer Jenny. Just as May was about to lead the officer to the scene, Munchlax came out. Munchlax? Where are you going? Nurse Joy asked as Munchlax pushed past the Chansey trying to take him back to the room. May got in front of him and Munchlax looked up. You're going back for your friends, aren't you? Munchlax nodded with steel in his eyes. Munch. May nodded and said, well then, let's go. She then knelt down and got Munchlax on her back. With that, they headed back to the sewer. Naruto watched as May left. Drac, Nightshade. Drac shot out a bolt of black lightning from his eyes and aimed for just beside Garbodor. The Pokemon jumped to the side, just as Naruto predicted, and he quickly sprinted forward, grabbed the hostage Pokemon, and sprinted back behind Drac. Garbodor's eyes narrowed and it roared in anger. Naruto set the Pokemon down and turned his attention back to the battle. Garbodor launched a sludge bomb at Drac, who drifted to the side. As Drac kept moving, Naruto noticed that the gas around him was packing down, getting more compressed. Naruto's eyes widened as he realized what was happening. He caught Drac's eye and he too smirked at each other. Naruto nodded as Drac closed his eyes. As Drac compressed his gases, Garbodor caught what was going on and started to panic a bit. One thing about Ghastly, when they started compressing their bodies, Drac glowed with a bright light and started to take on a more solid form, for a ghost. When the glow subsided, Drac had grown into a haunter. Drac let his tongue hang out as he looked back at Naruto. Naruto crossed his arms and said, go nuts buddy. Drac laughed as his fist was covered in shadow. He threw a punch at Garbodor and a fist of shadow flew out and knocked Garbodor into a wall. Then Drac's eyes glowed blue and Garbodor was lifted off the floor. Then Drac slammed him down into the ground, knocking him down. Garbodor struggled to its feet and was about to fire another sludge bomb, when Munchlax flew in and slammed a focus punch into Garbodor's face, knocking it out cold. It was then that May and Officer Jenny rounded the corner. Naruto, are you okay?
Naruto nodded as Drac floated around laughing. Jenny took out a capture ball, a special ball used to capture criminal Pokemon, and captured Garbodor. Well, that explains why Munchlax was stealing. Alright, Munchlax is cleared of all charges, and if you'll come with me, we can get these three to the Pokemon Center.
So after taking the 3 small Pokemon to the center and Nurse Joy assuring them that they would be taken care of, though one thing I'm worried about. Munchlax doesn't want to stay here, he wants to see the world. I'm afraid that he'll wander off now that they're taken care of. He's never been outside the city before. Naruto shook his head. No need to worry about that, right May? May nodded and pulled out a Pokeball, releasing Munchlax. I asked him if he wanted to come along with me, and he agreed, so welcome to the team Cloud. Cloud? Naruto asked. May nodded. Yeah. He's so light for how big he is, and he's so fluffy too. Munchlax just sat down with a close-eyed expression and chowed down on some Pokemon food. Later. Naruto and May had just finished buying supplies for traveling and were currently looking for a store that sold dresses. They eventually found a boutique and headed in. Naruto sat down near the changing rooms as May walked all over the store looking for a dress she liked. She eventually settled on 2 choices, a red evening gown, and a blue Victorian-style gown. She came out in the red gown and Naruto was almost unable to speak. It showed off her curves wonderfully, had a slit going down the side from mid-thigh, revealing the white stockings and red heels, with an off-the-shoulder top that hugged her more than generous bust. The second gown had small shoulder straps, elbow-length white fingerless lace gloves that were almost transparent, a full skirt that flowed down to her ankles, leaving her black stiletto heels and stockings revealed, and lastly, a bit of embroidering around to give it a glitzy appeal. After struggling to choose, Naruto suggested that they buy both, which May immediately agreed to. Naruto also picked out a little something for himself. After arranging for the clothes to be delivered to their hotel room, they decided to buy some swimming apparel. The contest was the day after tomorrow, and May had a pretty good handle on her contest appeal, so they decided to spend the whole next day relaxing on the beach. Later that night, Naruto was walking out of the hotel to the training fields nearby. May was doing some more training before their relaxation day. As Naruto walked onto the field, he was nearly blinded by a large flash of light. When his vision cleared, he was treated to one of the most beautiful sights he had ever seen. May was jumping around celebrating that her appeal combo had worked. When she saw Naruto, she blushed and looked down at the ground.
Naruto walked over and said, with a show like that, there's no way you won't win.
May lost her smile and said, I don't know. There'll be more experienced trainers competing, and more powerful Pokemon there. Naruto bopped her on the head. Hey, none of that. I know that you have the potential to become a top coordinator someday. So I'll make you a deal. If you promise to become a top coordinator, I'll promise to become a Pokemon master. May nodded with a smile and said, I promise. Naruto and May stood there for a minute, neither noticing Eros, Flicker, and Soul popping out and huddling up with Luna. As they stood there, Naruto blushed and said, Say. After the contest, would you want to? I don't know. Go out? May blushed as well, like a date. Sure. If that's what you want.
May stood silent for a minute, before Luna shot a bit of string at her legs, causing her to fall into Naruto, letting out a small scream. Also Flicker pecked Naruto's leg, causing him to cry out. While that happened, Eros jumped up and smacked the back of Naruto's head, while Soul pushed May's.
The result. Both Naruto and May were blushing red as they stood, lips connected. When they realized what they were doing, neither pulled away, and after a few seconds, Naruto wrapped his arms around her and started actually kissing her. May also brought her arms up around Naruto's neck and kissed back as well. They didn't know why. But they felt like this was right. Just right. The kiss got a bit more heated as their tongues entered the equation. After a few minutes, they finally separated. Wow. Naruto said, breathing a bit hard. Yeah. May said while breathing even harder.
The two broke their embrace and Naruto scratched the back of his head. I'm sorry, I don't know what came over me.
May shook her head, it's all right. Yes. At his confused look, she said, to the date. Ah, well. We should probably head back to the room. With that, the two walked back inside, their hands lacing together along the way. The Pokemon chuckled as they followed. That was fun. Soul said as he floated behind everyone. Ah, true love. Luna said with a sigh. Calm down, they're not in love yet. Eros said. Flicker merely stayed silent, he knew what was coming. Luna spent the entire trip up to the room accosting Eros about the wonders of love and destiny. Slateport Beach, the next day. Naruto walked up to the changing room with his swimsuit in hand while Mei went into the girls'. When he left, Naruto was wearing a pair of black trunks with blue flames along the sides. Mei was wearing a deep red two-piece bikini that cupped her bust, with string shoulder straps that tied behind her neck, and bottoms that tied together on the sides. They both flushed upon seeing each other. Mei had never really noticed, but Naruto was seriously muscular. He had a nice six-pack with corded arm muscles. After they snapped out of their staring, Naruto took their rented towel and umbrella, setting them up on the strangely vacant beach. Sure, there were people around, but nowhere near as much as they suspected given how beautiful the day was. They let their Pokemon out and let them run around free. Sol and Drac went to prank people. Flicker sat down under the umbrella. Tex and Frey started training. Eros went to explore with Luna. Sage soaked up the sun. Cool went toward the water for a swim, and Cloud just slept on top of the umbrella. Mei lay down on the towel and relaxed while Naruto went to grab a six-pack of soda from the beach shack.
When he came back, he immediately saw something that he didn't like. A few guys were bothering Mei, and judging by her annoyed look, she really wanted them to go away. What really made Naruto mad was that some of them appeared to be 10 years older than them.
Naruto walked up, set the sodas down next to Mei, sat down, and said, "Why don't you guys leave now?" One of them, who appeared to be the leader, scoffed. "Oh, we weren't doing anything wrong. We were just inviting the lovely lady to a party later, that's all." Mei spoke up. "Well, the lovely lady refused multiple times." "Aw, come on, sweetie. We promised to show you a good time." Naruto stood up to his full height of 6 feet 1 inch, looking down on the men. "She said no, so leave before I decide to make you." The leader sighed and turned. Before whipping back with a punch, Naruto took it without budging an inch. As he withdrew his fist, which felt like it had just hit a brick wall, the leader looked a bit scared. Naruto placed his hand on the guy's head, lifted him up so Naruto could stare him in the eye, and said, "Beat it." With that, he dropped the guy and watched as they all left. Naruto sat down next to Mei and popped 2 bottles of soda open, handing one to her. Mei took it and leaned on him, "My hero." After they'd finished their drinks, they walked down to the water to swim around for a minute. Along the way, they attracted the attention of both genders, Naruto gaining all the ladies' attention, and Mei drawing more than a few lustful gazes from men. They ignored all the looks and spent the next hour swimming around and relaxing in the water, until their attention was taken by a small explosion on another part of the beach, along with Luna flying up to sit on Mei's head and trying to get them to go to it. Deciding to see what the commotion was about, Naruto and Mei went over to where the explosion came from to see Eros battling an Absol. It looked like someone was trying to catch Eros, not knowing that he already had a trainer. Eros caught Naruto's eye and they shared a nod. Absol, Razor Wind. The dark Pokemon threw its head back, then forward, sending a blade of white energy flying at Eros. Metal Claw. Eros smirked as its claws gained the metal quality of the move, and sliced the blade in half, sending 2 smaller bits to either side. The Absol's trainer, a green-haired and green-eyed boy about their age, turned to them and scoffed. Naruto walked over to Eros and said, "I would think that a Pokemon among humans would have a trainer, don't you?" Mei came up beside Naruto and said, "You'd better not have attacked Luna like that." He flipped his hair back, no doubt in an attempt to play off his mistake. "Well, I thought he would come in handy in the contest, as well as the Beautifly, so I tried to catch them. Is that so wrong?" Mei smirked a bit. "So you're competing in the contest? Well, I hope to pay you back there." He smirked back. "I wouldn't count on it. You look like an amateur, so I wouldn't expect you to make it past the first round." Naruto entered the exchange. "Oh. You sound confident for someone who doesn't have a single ribbon of his own." The boy flinched and said, "How do you know that? For all you know, I could just need this last one." Your flinch gave it away. Plus I recognize you from those trainer tabloid magazines. Drew Lawton, the rising star, you're a beginner just like Mei. Despite how much hype you have. Naruto said, while Eros chuckled. Naruto left, while Mei followed after a second. Meanwhile Drew was annoyed. Naruto had destroyed his suave attitude in a few sentences. The day of the contest. Naruto took his seat in the stands and waited for the show to start. When it did, the announcer, Vivian, came up on stage started, "Welcome one and all to the Slateport City contest. Today we have many new competitors vying for a ribbon. Now let's start the appeals round." So Naruto watched as the competitors took the stage. Mei was last, so he watched all her opponents first. The only trouble she should have was Drew. Naruto had to admit, he was a good coordinator. When Mei's turn finally came up, she walked out on stage in her dress and Luna on her head. Luna flew up and the audience was immediately drawn to her by her shiny coloring, use silver wind. Luna spun while launching the attack, leading to a silver tornado flying around the arena. Stun Spore. Mei said. Luna launched the attack, keeping it contained in a particular shape, leading to her last move. Finish off with Flash. A bright light shone from the tornado, leaving a silvery sparkling light show gleaming on the walls of the arena. But the real eye drawer was the golden butterfly spreading its wings inside the tornado, created by Stun Spore. After a few minutes of the crowd roaring out cheers, the tornado collapsed, leaving silver and gold dust falling gently down to the ground. Luna landed on Mei's head as she curtsied, ending the performance. What an amazing performance from Mei. I certainly hope that she keeps it up. Now let's see the judges' score. All three came up with 10s. A perfect 30. Absolutely breathtaking, beating the previous high score of Drew. The crowd roared louder as Mei bowed a bit more and walked back to the waiting room. Naruto clapped at the performance. She had really got that down. He watched as the screen flashed the pictures of the competitors moving on. He wasn't the least bit surprised to see Mei's face first up on the list. He lost his smile when he saw that Mei was going up against Drew in the second round. While Naruto didn't have the best opinion of Drew, he was good.
Mei's first match was nothing special, just a few moves and her opponent was down. The rest of the rounds weren't much to watch either. It was when Mei and Drew battled that he really started paying attention. This would be a good battle, and even if Mei lost, it would be a good experience for her. Though he didn't expect her to lose, she had been training hard. While she wasn't at his level yet, she was definitely above the average trainer.
Drew was using his Roselia, and he looked like he thought he had the battle in the bag already. Mei sent Luna out and started off the battle. Roselia, Petal Dance. The small flower Pokemon sent out a wave of petals at Luna, who merely let them near. Mei smirked as she saw this. Silver Wind. Luna let the blasts of wind whip around her, catching the petals in their flow. Luna then sent the blast directly at Roselia. Drew grit his teeth, take it and use Poison Sting. Roselia shot the small needles through the storm while getting hit, leading to them both being hit. However, Luna, despite being more damaged, recovered quicker. String Shot. She fired a string of thread that wrapped around Roselia, immobilizing her. Now let's try our new move, throw her into the air. Luna did just that. Gust. Luna flapped her wings and sent a gust of air at Roselia, propelling her through the air until changing course and heading straight for the ground. Cyclone Drop. Roselia was slammed into the ground. When the smoke cleared, it revealed Roselia to be unconscious. Vivian jumped up on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, may I present the winner of the Slateport City Pokemon contest, Mei Maple. As Mei accepted the ribbon, Naruto clapped and headed backstage. When he arrived, he saw Mei staring at her new ribbon with a huge smile on her face. He walked up to her and said, "That was amazing." She flushed and said, "Well, you probably could have done better." Naruto shook his head. "No way, you came up with that appeal and that move combo all on your own. So, about getting some dinner." "Oh right. Let's go back to the room for a minute so I can change out of this dress." So they both walked back to the room. Naruto left his room wearing a black button-down shirt, a white suit vest, and a red tie, with black slacks and black loafers.
Mei left her room dressed in the red evening gown, complete with the white stockings and red heels. They left the hotel and got into a limousine Naruto had rented. "When did you get this?" He smiled shyly. "Right before the contest. I called while we were getting ready." "This is way too much." Naruto turned her chin and made her face him. "No, this is everything you deserve for being so awesome in your first contest. Think of this as part of the victory party." She nodded as the limo stopped, but she snuck a quick kiss before they got out of the limo. She hooked her arm through Naruto's as they walked up to the restaurant. It was a fancy Italian place on a hill Naruto had spotted while they were shopping.
It was a two-story building with an outdoor terrace section on the second floor. When they walked in, Naruto headed up to the hostess, party of 2 for Shirogane. She looked down at the book, and when she found their names, she led them to the terrace and sat them at a small table in the corner. As Mei looked through the menu, she looked around and noticed that there was nobody else there. It was just her and Naruto, which made her all the more nervous. Naruto noticed this quickly and said, "Don't worry, you don't have to be nervous."
She nodded as the waiter brought them water and took their orders. As they waited for their food, they talked about a number of things, their next destination, what their dreams were, small things like that.
Their food eventually arrived and they chowed down, though Mei ordered a pizza to go. Naruto had lasagna, while Mei had spaghetti. After they finished their dinner, they relaxed and looked out over the city. Naruto chuckled a bit. At Mei's questioning look, he said, "I never thought that my first date would be like this." "It's your first date?" Mei asked, surprised. Sure, he said that the kids in Littleroot bullied him, but she thought that the girls at least noticed him. "Yeah. What about you?" "It's my first date too." Naruto raised an eyebrow. "Really? I find that hard to believe. You are seriously beautiful, ya know." She blushed and said, "Well, it's not that boys never asked me out before. This is just the first time I accepted. Most of the time the guys in Petalburg were just after me for my looks or to get tricks for beating my daddy." "Well," Naruto said as he put on his best charming smile, which nearly made Mei weak at the knees, their loss. After they talked for a little bit, they headed back to the hotel and changed into their pajamas. Then they put on a movie and sat down on the couch. Naruto sat in the center while Mei sat with her legs up and leaned into him.
A few hours later, Naruto was sound asleep on the couch while Mei lay down on top of him. She suddenly woke up and looked around. "We must have fallen asleep while watching the movie." She then looked down at Naruto, and as she considered going to her own room to sleep, the thought of her bed just made her feel cold.
So she stood up and got a blanket from the hallway, lying back down on Naruto while tossing the blanket on. Something is weird about this. How could I have fallen so hard for Naruto so quickly? As she continued thinking on it, she felt Naruto's arm wrap around her waist. I don't care anymore. Whether it's natural or not. I'm happy like this. With that, Mei closed her eyes and drifted off to sleep. 1. The next morning, Naruto and Mei were headed toward the town exit on their way to Mauville City. Naruto, after getting over his more than pleasant morning, made them some quick sandwiches, which they were now munching on. Right before they left, they heard 2 guys talking about a famous idol that was in town. Mei stopped and watched them head over to the contest hall. Naruto noticed her gaze and said, "We could go check it out if you want." She nodded and they followed the 2 guys. They eventually came to a giant crowd, and they heard people talking about a contest idol named Lycia. They eventually found themselves in front of the crowd to see a girl with blue hair and eyes, wearing a styling outfit, with an Altaria floating next to her. She was looking around the crowd in an almost bored fashion, until her eyes landed on Mei, and then her eyes lit up like a Christmas tree. Within seconds, she was over in front of them. "Come with me," she said as she grabbed Mei's hand and ran. Mei grabbed Naruto's hand and the next thing the 2 knew, they were being dragged through town like ragdolls, until they found themselves at a small, secluded spot on the beach. "I'm so sorry about that. I wanted to talk to you but I didn't want to do it in front of all those people, he," she explained as her Altaria landed beside her. Mei shook her head and said, "Well, it's certainly the first time that's happened." Naruto nodded. "I'm Lycia Aldrich, and this is Ali, and I wanted to congratulate you on winning that contest. I was entranced by your Beautifly and its appeal." "Oh. Well, thank you. I'm Mei Maple, and this is Naruto Shirogane." Lycia looked to her other companion, whom she hadn't noticed until then, and she was stunned. He was a hottie with a capital Hot. She shook her head. "I'm sorry for staring, it's just that you have a certain coordinator appeal to you as well." Naruto scratched the back of his head. "Well, it's not my cup of tea. I'm aiming to be the Hoenn champion as of now." Her eyes gained another sparkle. "Oh really? That's a lofty goal. Well, I look forward to seeing what you 2 do." With that, she left, Ali following. Naruto and Mei stood there for a few seconds before Mei said, "So she's a top coordinator, huh?" "Wow." Naruto walked up and put an arm around her shoulder. "Don't worry. How many times do I have to tell you that you're an amazing..."